dear. Hello folks, how are you doing? This will be on YouTube as well, so let's just figure out. I used to do this sideways, normally do it up and down, so giving it a different take this time. So hang on. Hi there guys, been a number of things happened in around culture and stuff this week or recently, so I did want to have a chat about it again. It's something I've obviously talked about before and written various articles on driving more, and it's a topic that I have a lot of that I'm trying to promote, I guess. So hey, welcome to Driving More, talking about concussion. So please feel free to share this with your friends either on Twitter or Facebook. You can do that by swiping or something or other. You can also tap the screen to do hearts if you're watching through Periscope. Also, if you're watching through Periscope, you can type in questions at the bottom. Please do so, and I'll happily talk about them. So the thing that really sort of triggered this initially was that Rugby New Zealand announced that it was working with statisticians to do some research not linking necessarily, but looking at the link between dementia and head injuries in rugby, and obviously particularly concussion. And this is something that Rugby New Zealand has done research on concussion before, and they've but they've had problems in the past with getting people to answer surveys and things. So there's that piece going on. There's also the RFU has also commissioned some research, and we also have Saracens doing their own research with the chips that are stuck behind the players' ears, so they can monitor the impacts during games. And I've heard of other research processes that have put chips into the gum shields, but I'm not sure if they're rugby related or not. But that's mainly been out of the States, looking at that piece. I think that's probably more around American football. But there's obviously plenty of pieces going on. I actually pinged Brett Gosper, the CEO of World Rugby, and said, hey, is there anybody at World Rugby sort of coordinating all of this? Because there seem to be lots of these things going on, looking at different aspects of it disparately, but not necessarily. But it seems hard to see from the outside anyway a concerted view or concerted effort across rugby around this, and so on, coordinating it. But apparently the chief medical officer at the World Rugby keeps an eye. He said he keeps an eye on research and then coordinates World Rugby's own research, which doesn't suggest a very collaborative effort between all the unions. But I do hope I'm wrong on that one. But so I do think that there should be more of a collaborative approach across the unions, with, say, Saracens doing the sort of in-game data, and other unions saying, hey, we'll fund research from this point of view, and then the medical officer saying, hey guys, we need somebody to step up and research this or that to fill the gaps. And it would be good to have an annual report saying, hey, this is where we're at with the research, and this is what we know so far, and this is what research is ongoing. So there's transparency, and so we can see that rugby is doing the right thing. Because to be honest with you, it doesn't feel like rugby is doing the right thing at the moment. So that's the kind of the research side of it. Then there's the culture side of it. So hey Rugby Scout, thanks for joining. If you want to type in write questions in the bottom, please feel free to do so. And just so I wanted a reminder, I'll put this onto YouTube later so people can have a look, watch it on YouTube, or you can watch it back here if you've missed some of it already. But the other piece of it has come to light about there's been a few concussions over the last few games. Obviously, we had Lambie go off on a stretcher, and he was later seen walking around at the airport and flying on with the box to the next game. But wasn't selected, thankfully. And then we've also had Rob Horne for Australia go off for a concussion and then play the next week. We've had Jack Nowell has apparently got a concussion and is reportedly going to be rested, which is good. Fekitoa and Aaron Cruden are both being rested this week, or at least aren't playing this week. But Jamie Roberts is playing after a head knock in the last game. And it's his one that's really forced me onto it. I've been wanting to come onto Periscope for a while to talk about these things, but his one is the one that's particularly brought this one, forced me onto here. Now, I'm not a doctor, but from my understanding, the way you recover, the way you let your brain recover from a concussion or a head injury, the best thing is to do is to reduce the amount of inputs into it and to let it rest and let it recover. So here are some things that I think we should be doing. I don't think a player who fails a head injury should be allowed back on the bench. Sitting on the bench watching a rugby game with 40 or 80,000 people shouting and all the razzmatazz that goes on around that is not reducing inputs into the brain. You're hearing lots of things, you're seeing lots of things, you're feeling lots of things. There's a lot going on. It's not resting the brain. So I think all grounds should be mandated to have a kind of a concussion rest room where players can go if they failed head injury assessment and rest. Now, obviously, they need to be accompanied because if they fall asleep or something, then there's things that there are negative things that can happen there. So I'm not suggesting they go for a lie down necessarily, but they need to be somewhere where they can reduce inputs. The reason I say that is there was a player in Japan that had a concussion, went to hospital, got released from hospital, went home and went to sleep and never woke up again. So there has been somebody, a professional rugby player, or at least semi-professional rugby player, has died in recent times. So that's one of the things I think we should be doing. I think so. I would question things like Pollard going to an airport in the week, a couple of days after a game and after he's had a serious concussion. Same also with I don't know how bad Aaron Cruden's concussion was or how much it was neck injury, but again, I'd question them going onto planes and being in airports. It's hard. That's not resting your brain. I don't know what impacts flying has on this sort of thing, but I'm pretty sure I've heard things before that you shouldn't fly after a concussion from somewhere. So I don't think. So generally, I think the senior players haven't got the right information on how to rest their brains, or at least aren't demonstrating it very well to other players. Now, we can question whether players need to be role models in everyday life. That is open for debate. But being role models on the pitch, you are, and that does include how you react to head injuries. Now, the other one that brought me up to this really was Jamie Roberts. So he went on the BBC and website and was quoted as saying that he got to meet Fekitoa for the first 30 seconds and the rest of the game was a bit of a blur. Now that's really, to me, was very disappointing to read, that he was allowed to play on. Let's be honest, Wales haven't got the best record with George North, even though and his head injuries in the past and being allowed to play on. And I really do think they need to tighten things up. Him then saying that I hope to, that I'm going through the protocols and I hope to be able to play. Personally, I would like to have seen him rested. I don't think he doesn't need to play this weekend. I don't think you ever need to play compared to looking at your long-term health and your head injuries. So one of the big things that amazes me, and I've asked in the past, so the head injury protocols for a professional player say that they have to go through the return to play protocols, which can start immediately. For an amateur player, they have to rest for 14 days before they're allowed to start going through those head injury assessments. So my basic question is, what's the difference in a professional player's head to an amateur player's head? We're all humans. We're all pretty much the same in that kind of physiological sense. You can have better muscles and things to support your head, so you're less likely to get a head injury potentially. But once you've got one, I don't think that the training that professional players do helps them in any way. The reason I say that the neck strengthening one is I read some research coming out of the States that women are more susceptible to receiving concussions than men, and one of the things they put that down to was around strength of the neck and conditioning. So that's where I've heard that one from. So yes, I would be much more in my unconditioned state, more likely to suffer a concussion than say Jamie Roberts in a hit, and I fully understand that. But once you've had one, once you've got the concussion, I think the recovery would probably be pretty similar, and it doesn't matter how much training you've done, that's not going to help you recover. So those are my the main points. I don't think if we're asking amateur players to have 14 days break, I really do not see that players should be coming back and playing the next week after a concussion if they've had one. If you take someone off for a head knock and say they passed and say they didn't fail any head injury and they're not going through head injury protocols, then I can understand it. If you're going through head injury protocols, you shouldn't be playing the next week. That applies to Horn for Australia as much as it does for Jamie Roberts for Wales. This is not something for any team, and also Jack Nowell. As I say, it sounds like he isn't going to be playing. So those are my views on concussions. And if you've watched some sort of Jamie Beattie's stuff or read some of the ex-players' pieces, you'll understand why I'm so passionate about this and why I believe people should not be playing. To be having constant headaches or to have memory loss 10 or 15 years after you've stopped playing, which is my kind of age. I mean, I'm 40, just over 40. There are guys at my kind of age who are having constant headaches, memory loss and stuff. That's not the kind of thing you should be having at this kind of age. You're at 40, you're sort of halfway through your life. You've still got another 40 odd years, hopefully, to go. So these are the sort of things that we shouldn't be allowing our players to do. The culture is still about manning up and playing through the injury. For head injuries, we have to stop that. We have to change the culture around that. It's good to see Jamie Beattie spoke up and say he wasn't sure it was the right thing. Personally, I went strong and said, I know it's not right. So it's a bad example being set by Mr. Roberts by his quotes on the BBC. I've not seen quotes from the other players, so I can't comment on what they've said. Anyway, thanks a lot, guys, and chat to you later.